Hello, football fans. It's the NFL Exporter checking in February 2015. The 2014 season is officially over. The free agent market is going to be back upon us in a couple months in the summertime. So let's go back, take a look at the 2014 free agent class and see how things fared out. We're going to start out in New Orleans. Jarius Byrd, a safety, came over from the Buffalo Bills. He got injured very early in the season, so was not able to make the impact that New Orleans hoped for. If you look at the New Orleans defense, arguably the worst in the NFL this season, you certainly see why Jarius Byrd was needed. Hopefully he can get back to 100% because that defense needs him desperately. Let's take a look at what happened out in New England, and all of their free agent pickups were able to come in and make an immediate splash. We're going to first talk about their two defensive backs. I thought that was something in the preseason when I seen that. This certainly gave New England an opportunity to get over the top, in which they certainly did. We're talking about Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner. If you think about Revis, we all know that he was the best defensive back in the NFL prior to a nasty ACL injuries a couple years ago. Really kind of got back to full strength last year in Tampa Bay. Came back this year in New England, got out to a little bit of a slow start, but really middle of the season from there on, you really seen Darrelle Revis kind of get back into form, and as we've seen so many times in the past, kind of running the receivers' routes before they can even get to it. So great job by Revis. And if you think about Brandon Browner, that was something that was overlooked in the Super Bowl. Browner was part of that Legion of Boom defense, along with Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor out in Seattle. At the end of last year, was suspended due to violating the NFL's performance enhancement drug policy. Nonetheless, coming over to New England paid huge dividends. The guy 6'4", very strong upper body, did a great job. I really thought that New England solidifying their defensive back position, that was the real weakness for New England the past couple years, was them being inconsistent in coverage in their secondary. And so great pickups by New England to solidify those cornerbacks. You're talking about Brandon LaFell, caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl, came over from Carolina, a guy at 6'4", who Tom Brady really liked a lot. Julian Edelman was still there, but LaFell really found a comfort zone and really found a great fit for him in New England. So great job by Brandon LaFell. And then LeGarrette Blount picked him up halfway through the season after Pittsburgh parted ways with him, was effective when he needed to be, especially in the AFC Championship game. Second straight year, he's up over 130 rushing yards, 3 TDs plus against the Indianapolis Colts. And so great job by New England going out and getting players who could be of an immediate impact and help them win a Super Bowl this year. Moving over to Tampa Bay, this is certainly a team, unlike New England, it's kind of the exact opposite, missed in all areas. Went out, signed a veteran quarterback, Josh McCown. Didn't work out for him, got injured early, missing a lot of time. Once he got back underneath the center, just a guy who was always making turnovers, obviously not the answer in Tampa Bay. Michael Johnson came over from Cincinnati, did next to nothing. His impact was not felt at all. And then Altron Werner, very decent defensive back, but because Tampa Bay's defense as a whole struggled, kind of got caught up in the wash. I certainly think that Johnson and Werner have an opportunity to rebound this year. Not so much for McCown. I just don't think he's the answer there at quarterback. You look at the Denver Broncos, and name-wise, it looked great. You're talking about DeMarcus Ware, T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib, Emmanuel Sanders, Connor Barth. Now look, for DeMarcus Ware, T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib, I think those are the guys that you really focus on. All of them had nice regular seasons. There's no doubt about that at all. But when it came time to the playoffs, and I think in the games where, that's where Denver really brought these free agents in. They made it to the Super Bowl last year. So, when you're a team that's of a championship caliber, and you're bringing these type of free agents where you're paying big type money out to, you're expecting for these guys to push you over the top. And DeMarcus Ware, T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib, I think in the biggest moments for Denver, these guys just weren't there. Denver statistically, yeah, it was good. They were in the top 5 against the run, but I think overall this was a defense that was average at best. Ware certainly was able to get pressure, but just a guy who really not stout enough against the run. I think you look at T.J. Ward, a guy who certainly is a hard hitter, but still had a little trouble in coverage. And then Talib, look, you give him the credit. He's a guy who comes out and takes on the opposing team's best wide receiver week in and week out, but certainly had some stumbles. Emmanuel Sanders did a great job in his debut with Denver. Up over 100 catches, 1,400 yards, 8 TDs. This guy was absolutely outstanding coming in and replacing Eric Decker. And then Connor Barth came in, did an outstanding job for Denver as well. Really the last quarter of the season when they picked him up, Denver had some struggles at the kicker position. Barth came in and certainly solidified that. Moving over to the Miami Dolphins now, did a great job. You're talking about tackle Brandon Albert before he was injured. Certainly did a great job of protecting Ryan Tannehill and opening up holes in that running game. Sean Moreno, running back, unfortunately for him, got injured in the second game of the season. Didn't get a chance to see this guy throughout the course of the year. When he did come back from that forearm injury, tore his ACL in the same game that he came back in. It's just unfortunate for Sean Moreno, a big-time talent, but just never on the football field long enough to really allow you to enjoy what he can bring to the table. Louis Delmas, I love what he brought over from Detroit. Thought he was a perfect fit for this defense there on the back end. Hard hitter, instinctive player with his nose around the football, knows how to get guys in position. And Cortland Finnegan came in and did a great job as well, playing opposite Brent Grimes. I was really high on the Miami Dolphins defense, who really carried them for the majority of the season. And so those were some great pickups for the Miami Dolphins this year. Moving over to the Washington Redskins, Deshaun Jackson, wide receiver, came over. Certainly showed he's still one of the top players in the NFL at making big plays. Led the NFL once again in yards per reception. This guy does not lead a lot of catches to pick up huge yardage. Has that blazing speed. Unfortunately, just didn't translate to more wins. That Washington Redskins struggled big time this year, but Jackson, to his credit, came over and did a great job. Jason Hatcher certainly came over as well from the Dallas Cowboys. Really helped Washington be a top 10 defense against the run. Andre Roberts had a pretty decent campaign, but again, the quarterback carousel in Washington really hurt that offense. I think Roberts, though, will continue to be a guy who Washington tries to rely on working out of the slot. And then you look at Ryan Clark, really couldn't do much. I think now we see why Pittsburgh let him go. He's just not the same player. Doesn't have the same speed, doesn't have the range anymore. That Redskins secondary, one of the worst in the NFL. We're now moving over to the Detroit Lions. Great job they did in the offseason. How about bringing over wide receiver Golden Tate from the Seattle Seahawks? We know that Tate was really able to have an outstanding year. I mean, you look at 99 catches, over 1,000 yards. It was really the low TD count that didn't have his numbers blow you away. But I think if it weren't for Tate, because Calvin Johnson missed so much time due to injury, Detroit would have had a lot more losses. So you really give Golden Tate and the Lions organization a lot of credit. This was a huge pickup to help keep their offense afloat while Detroit's offense went through battled really a ton of injuries on that offense. And then we look on the defensive side of the ball. Detroit certainly wasn't able to address their secondary needs through the draft, but did an excellent job in the free agent market. You're talking about Grover Quinn and James Ahedebo, two safeties that came over. A huge impact these guys had. Ahedebo, physical specimen, laying a boom down in the secondary, showing some nice skills and coverage. And then Grover Quinn, nice interceptions that he had, real heady player, showed his quickness. I think both of these guys brought that veteran leadership and toughness over to Detroit's defense that helped solidify their back end that had struggled for so long to allow Detroit to be the #1 ranked defense in the NFL. We now move out to Baltimore. Great job the Ravens did. Went out and got Steve Smith, wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers. Got out to an extremely hot start, really balanced out throughout the course of the season, but really gave Joe Flacco another weapon. Last year it was just Torrey Smith. Defenses were certainly able to limit and take that away. You brought Steve Smith into the equation now, and defenses, once Smith got off to a hot start, paying him so much attention, that Torrey Smith was able to get back open on the other side. And so I think Smith certainly has another year of fire left in him. Nice 1-2 punch on the outside for Joe Flacco. Justin Forsett, great pickup here. The running back came over, really flourished in his first year as a starter out in Baltimore. We know that Ray Rice wasn't there due to off-the-field issues. Bernard Pierce, not the guy. What other better guy to bring in than Forsett? coming over with offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak from Houston, really understood the zone blocking scheme. You can see it time and time again. Very patient runner, knowing how to stretch the plays out and then hit the hole. Cashed in for over 1,200 yards rushing. Excellent job by Forsett. And then you had Owen Daniels, another guy coming over, understanding that zone blocking scheme, really understanding the offensive philosophies of new offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak. And this pick really proved to be more value than what was initially seen. We know that Dennis Pitta was the starting tight end for Baltimore. He went down early in the season with a season-ending injuries. Owen Daniels able to step in, and the Baltimore offense didn't have to lose a beat because this guy understood that offense, did a great job as always. Nice job by the Baltimore Ravens. Move out to Arizona now. You certainly like the players they were able to pick up. We're talking about Jared Valdir, able to come in, pay dividends as a starter on the offensive line. Anytime you can solidify your offensive line, that's always a positive. How about Antonio Cromartie, able to pair him up with Patrick Peterson? Certainly a lockdown defensive back tandem there. Really helped the Cardinals defense before their offense got all banged up and really couldn't put any points up anymore. But great job by Cromartie. He was in a Pro Bowl this year. And then Ted Ginn Jr., a guy to give you some depth at the wide receiver position. But we all know that Ginn Jr. is a guy who really excels in special teams. We've seen him with a nice punt return for a touchdown against the New York Giants to give Arizona a nice road victory early in the season. So great job by Arizona bringing in some guys who can help him out immediately. As for the New York Jets, really hard to say so. You look at bringing in Eric Decker, wide receiver from Denver, and Decker did a great job, battled some hamstring injuries, really had a huge game at the end of this year against Miami with 11 catches, 201 yards, 2 TDs, but the season was well over at that time. I don't think that game really had too much meaning. I think the biggest thing you're looking at Decker is he can only be as good as the quarterback's going to allow him. Not a lot of other talent there in the passing game for the Jets, and so I like the pick, trying to upgrade, but the results just didn't translate over to the football field. And for Chris Johnson, the running back they picked up for Tennessee, I think we were all, even Johnson himself, under the assumption that he was going to be the starter and get the full workload. We were all kind of looking forward to him getting back to seeing what he can do in a full-time role. Just didn't work out that way. He ended up being outplayed by Chris Ivory, and let's give Ivory the credit. He ran harder. He ran better in his opportunities, although I don't think Johnson was really given that fair of a shake. Again, the Jets' offense so bad, just really wasn't able to take advantage of the opportunity. So for Decker and Johnson, it'll be interesting to see, exactly how they're used and if they can be better next year. Let's move over to the Cleveland Browns. A couple pickups to me, which really didn't pay immediate dividends, more or less trying to fill in some spaces, and you have to respect them for that. I'm talking about safety Dante Whitner. Came over from San Francisco. Definitely a hard hitter, I think, from that aspect, and needing to replace the loss of TJ Ward, who went to Denver. You certainly like Whitner in that capacity, but struggles in pass coverage. And, and that's one thing that certainly I think San Francisco decided to move on with him. And so he's a guy that, I think you just want to keep close to the line of scrimmage. I think he's more effective there. Just doesn't have the ball skills to make things happen in the secondary. And then Ben Tate just got off to a slow start with an injury. Had a couple good games, but ultimately I think running his mouth too much. He began to grumble and complain about how much playing time he was getting and not wanting to share playing time, and just didn't work out there for him. And so Cleveland decided to cut him. He bounced around to a couple different teams. He'll be back on the free agent market. I think that's something, though, that may be a cloud over his head. Teams don't want guys who are going to basically not be team players and, kind of complain. I mean, if somebody else is getting playing time ahead of you, they're working hard like you. I think you need to be a little bit more supportive and just try to get the job done yourself instead of kind of, voicing your displeasure to the media. Now let's move out to the Oakland Raiders. This was a team that I thought, considering the free agents that they brought in, had some type of shot of at least being in the wild card race, and it just didn't happen. I mean, when you're talking about James Jones, wide receiver from Green Bay, I think we were able to see that this guy does have some talent, but he was really more or less the product of playing with a lot of other great players, including quarterback Aaron Rodgers and his pinpoint accuracy in Green Bay. And so Jones, solid, but not the splash that they were hoping for. You look at Donald Penn. He did a great job for Oakland this year, being a tackle, helping to protect rookie quarterback Derek Carr. Matt Schaub didn't work out at all. As we mentioned, Carr was able to beat him out for the starting position in the preseason. I think it's just done for Schaub. I think he completely lost his mojo, his confidence back in Houston. Just really looks like an unsure quarterback. Maurice Jones-Drew, a guy who we thought coming into the season was going to be the starter, but it didn't work out. He really didn't get a lot of playing time. And so, I think when you look at Matt Schaub and Maurice Jones-Drew, two guys I thought that were coming over there to try to, get a late resurgence in their career and really kind of just, kind of leave the game with some pride. Did not happen. I'd be surprised to see either one of those guys back on the Raiders roster unless it's something that has to do with them having, it's going to be a contract situation where letting them go could hurt the Raiders, or they know something we don't. But neither one of these guys really did anything for Oakland this year. Really a complete waste. When you look at the defensive side of the football, certainly Lamar Woodley, Justin Tuck made that Raiders front seven a lot more tougher. Again, the Raiders were a team that were competitive for the most part, didn't translate over to a lot of wins, but I think Tuck along with Woodley are going to be some veteran guys who are going to get this thing one more swing and just see if they can help to establish a little bit more pride, some winning ways for the Raiders. And then Carlos Rogers came over from the San Francisco 49ers, just didn't have the impact, was nicked up quite a bit, but again, I think the Raiders to me were one of the most disappointing teams. When you looked at all the free agents they brought in, meshed in with some talent they already had in their draft picks, it just did not translate into more wins for that football team. Moving over now to Chicago, picking up Jared Allen. This was one of the biggest bust free agents. I thought this was going to be a great pickup. You figure in Chicago, losing Julius Peppers, Jared Allen steps in his place in the same division. This guy was just MIA. I don't know if it was internal issues, motivation. I don't know what the issue was, but Allen had been on a streak of like 7 straight years of double-digit sacks. Always a high motor guy, always a guy causing problems in the backfield, and he was straight up MIA this year, and I think that's a huge reason that Bears defense struggled. Now moving over to the New York Giants, you certainly like some of their pickups. We're talking about Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, Rashard Jennings, and Walter Thurman. Look, they brought over Thurman and Cromartie to try to help them in their secondary. Both of those guys hit hard with injuries. Cromartie in and out of the lineup all year. Walter Thurman bringing his winning ways, that Super Bowl winning pedigree over from Seattle, got injured early in the year. He had to miss the whole year. And then Rashard Jennings certainly got off to a hot start, but banged up with injuries, kind of kept him in and out the lineup. So we really weren't able to see his full talent on display. I think Jennings certainly has the ability to be one of the better running backs in the NFL, but he's got to stay healthy, and that's been an issue for him throughout the course of his career. So if you look at New York, good free agent pickups, but the guy certainly battered health issues. Look at the Green Bay Packers picking up Julius Peppers. Came so close to reaching that elusive Super Bowl appearance that Peppers wanted to have. Did a great job out for Green Bay. I don't know if he's going to have enough left in the tank. Hard when you lose in that fashion to come back another year. But I think all hands will be in for Green Bay next year, really trying to make that push to get over a hump in the game in which they felt they really should have won in Seattle. Peppers continues to be outstanding. Really a glue guy there now as a veteran in the front seven. Has that flexibility to get after the passer. And he's just a guy who knows how to keep his nose around the football and make nice plays. You now move over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I love all of the efforts that they tried to make. You're talking about on defense, going out and getting Chris Clemens, Red Bryant, two guys who just came off of winning the Super Bowl in Seattle. I think without question, their presence was felt. You're certainly seeing Jacksonville as a team who may statistically, it may have not added up for you, but coming down the stretch the second half of the season, it was not that easy. to run on Jacksonville, and certainly they got a little bit better at getting pressure on the quarterback. If you think about Jacksonville, was a team that had a rookie quarterback, not a lot of talent on offense, so their defense on the field way too much. You know, at some point the levee's going to break, but Chris Clemens and Red Bryant were certainly a step in the right direction. They tried to go out and get running back Toby Gerhart. Obviously, he wasn't the answer. I've said it on many occasions. Don't know what really cause for Jacksonville to have an interest in this guy. I think besides maybe just not having a bona fide running back, so you kind of understand it to that point. But Toby Gerhart never did anything in Minnesota to really convince or should have shown anybody to have hope and promise in him. We know that Denard Robinson is now your main guy there. And then you like Jacksonville going out and getting Zane Beadles. He was a Pro Bowler. He was protecting Peyton Manning out in Denver. And so he certainly should be a guy who can help their offensive line when it gets back healthy. We now move over to the Dallas Cowboys. Certainly we're able to get some positive things going. We're talking about Henry Melton, defensive tackle, certainly came in, helped Dallas improve on the front line. And Rolando McClain was in the conversation, comeback player of the year, did a great job helping Dallas do a decent job of stopping the run and making some things happen in the passing game. I think your biggest surprise here was quarterback Brandon Wheaton. In his one opportunity that we had to see him against the Arizona Cardinals, this guy looked so bad and lost. Essentially, Dallas had to put an injured Tony Romo back into the lineup faster than they wanted to because they feared that they might lose to Jacksonville. And so I think that goes to show you how bad Whedon looked. I'd be shocked if he's back on their team next year. If so, man, I tell you, if Tony Romo goes down, you cannot be confident in what you're seeing out of this guy unless he makes some huge strides in the offseason. But that was a very poor and pathetic showing by Whedon when we did see him this year. Moving on now to Indianapolis, I like the pickups they had. We're talking about Doquell Jackson, a linebacker who for many years flew under the radar out in Cleveland. But year after year, when you looked at the stats, he's up over 100 tackles, had a nice interception in the AFC Championship game against New England. He's a mainstay. He's certainly going to be a positive for Indianapolis on their defense, stopping and running, just being a leader on that defense. Hakeem Nicks, certainly a disappointment there. Thought that he would be able to come in and be more of an impact. Nicks is a guy, from what I see, he doesn't have a work ethic. He doesn't have the desire. Certainly has the physical tools. I think we all recall his days in New York and the great things he was able to do. But that's what my overall sense with Nicks. He's just not a guy who's hungry for it. Moving over to Philadelphia now. Nice pickup for Mark Sanchez. Look, not the answer as the starter, but certainly was going to be better than Matt Barkley. If that was going to be the starter behind Nick Foles. As we all know, Foles went down with an injury about the halfway point through the season. And so I think Sanchez did what we expected against weaker teams in favorable situations. He was able to capitalize, but when it came time to deliver against your top ranked defenses and tougher teams, Sanchez showed exactly what he is, and that's just an average quarterback, and that's okay. I think that none of us have greatness in line for Mark Sanchez. We kind of accept the situation for what it is. Malcolm Jenkins, on the other hand, I don't want to say a disappointment because he had his moments, but Philadelphia really needs to upgrade their secondary. That is an area that they need a lot of help in. And look, Malcolm Jenkins was with that defense over in New Orleans. Big reason they let him go. You know, he's a guy who makes his plays, but I think he still makes more mistakes, and particularly not good in coverage. And so he's going to have to find a way to right the ship there. We look out in San Diego. Donald Brown didn't quite fit the bill. Look, Ryan Matthews is a guy that we know who's the starter out in San Diego. He gets hurt a lot. You bring in Donald Brown, you figure to have some depth behind them. I think the thing we forgot about Donald Brown, he's a guy who's very injury prone too. So in his opportunities that he had, didn't do much with it. Then he got injured. Essentially, we've seen rookie Brandon Oliver come in and take over that role. So it'll be very interesting to see how much playing time Donald Brown is going to get next year for the Chargers. A nice pickup here for the Buffalo Bills was going out and getting inside linebacker Brandon Spikes. Look, bringing over a winning pedigree from the New England Patriots. It's also nice when you can pick up free agents inside of your division, give you a little bit inside track as to maybe some ways or strategies you can attack the opposing team, which is that player's former team. Again, losing Kiko Alonso this year, the Bills star linebacker, Spikes really paid dividends, being able to come in, help solidify the Bills, stopping the run, and really helping the Bills defense as a whole end up being one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I like the Brandon Spikes pickup a lot. For Atlanta, going out and getting Devin Hester, he paid huge dividends. We know the damage he can do on special teams, as we've seen him set the all-time kickoff, special teams, punt, returns record this year on Thursday Night Football. So great job and congratulations to him. But also was able to come over and pay some dividends as a wide receiver. Roddy White, a bit nicked up this year. He's starting to slow down. Hester was able to get in there and certainly make his presence felt. We move over to St. Louis now, going out and getting veteran Kenny Britt from the Tennessee Titans. Certainly thought that was a solid pickup. Didn't have a lot of hope in Britt, but when he finally got his opportunities, was able to do some damage. And so another guy who can be a bit injury prone. We'll see next year. I think the offense is so unsettled out there for St. Louis as far as the quarterback in a wide receiver situation. If Britt is in the fold, he'll certainly have every opportunity to get in the starting lineup. A little bit later on in the season, but you certainly like the pickup of James Harrison returning home to Pittsburgh. Certainly was able to help their pass rush, just really get the Steelers back to their identity, get that defense, that nasty streak going. And he's an older player, but certainly was a nice part to help Pittsburgh win that division and get back in the playoffs. Ryan Fitzpatrick out in Houston. We know that this guy's not the answer. Look, average at best, did have one good game throughout the course of the season, but at one point was benched for the backup quarterback who came over to that team. When he went out with an injury, that was the only way that Ryan Fitzpatrick was able to get back in there. Then he got hurt, and then Houston had to turn to someone else. So I don't know what the situation is going to be next year in Houston, but one thing's for sure, he will not be the outright starter how he was coming into this year. He will be battling for that starting quarterback position. Look out in Seattle. You like them going out and getting Kevin Williams, defensive tackle from Minnesota. Williams was a Pro Bowler for a couple years out there in Minnesota. And if you think about losing guys like Chris Clemens, like Red Bryant on the front lines, they even end up losing defensive tackle Brandon Mebane at one point. Williams was a key piece there, being able to be stout up in the trenches and really try to help the Seattle clog up the running game. Almost was able to get himself a Super Bowl in his first year in Seattle. And then we move over last but not least to the Carolina Panthers. Not high on any of their pickups at all. You're talking about safety Roman Harper, who came over from New Orleans. I'm not sure how they picked this guy up. Seeing him on a year in and year out basis, when you're playing against New Orleans and you're seeing this guy constantly getting beaten coverage, looking lost out there in the secondary, in the passing game. And so I don't understand why they went and got this guy. Who knows? Maybe it was a scheme, it was a fit. But when I seen him, it was the same thing. He's out there getting torched in coverage. So that left a lot of question marks in my head. And then Jericho Cotchery and Jason Avant, the two wide receivers they got up. Cotchery from Pittsburgh, Avant from Philadelphia. Older players, Cam Newton has not shown the pinpoint accuracy. I think when you look at these two guys, they didn't scare anybody. These guys don't have any ability to create separation on their passing routes. Yes, they have sure hands, but you want explosive players in the passing game. And so Cotchery and Avant, veteran guys, basically just out there running around. Got open every now and then, but certainly did not make anywhere near the type of impact that Carolina was hoping for in the passing game whatsoever. That's going to round up our 2014 free agent review. NFL Exporter, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFL Exporter, or send a Facebook request to me, facebook.com/NFL Exporter. The spelling for both of those, NFLExporter.